Conflict. Defining conflict. Conflict is a central element of narrative structure that drives the plot and shapes character development. It represents the struggle between opposing forces that creates tension and propels the story forward. Conflict can be internal, external, or a combination of both, and it is crucial for creating drama, driving character decisions, and engaging readers. Types of conflict. Internal conflict. Internal conflict occurs within a character's mind or emotions. It involves struggles related to personal dilemmas, moral questions, or emotional challenges. Internal conflicts often focus on the character's values, desires, or fears, and they contribute to character development and thematic depth. For example, in Shakespeare's Hamlet, Hamlet's internal conflict revolves around his doubts and indecision about avenging his father's death. External conflict. External conflict involves a struggle between a character and an outside force. This can include conflicts with other characters, societal norms, nature, or supernatural elements. External conflicts drive the plot and create tension by presenting obstacles that the character must confront. For example, in Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Captain Ahab's external conflict is with the whale, Moby Dick, which symbolizes his quest for vengeance. Types of external conflict. Character versus character. In this type of conflict, two characters oppose each other, creating a direct struggle between them. This can involve rivalry, antagonism, or ideological differences. For example, in The Hunger Games by Susan Collins, Katniss Everdeen's conflict with President Snow represents a struggle between individual rebellion and oppressive authority. Character versus society. This conflict occurs when a character challenges societal norms, laws, or expectations. It explores themes related to justice, conformity, and social change. For instance, in To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Atticus Finch faces conflict with the social prejudices of his community as he defends Tom Robinson in a racially charged trial. Character versus nature. In this conflict, a character struggles against natural forces, such as weather, animals, or survival challenges. It often highlights themes of human resilience and vulnerability. For example, in The Old Man and the Sea by Ernest Hemingway, Santiago's battle with the marlin represents a struggle against nature's power and the quest for personal triumph. Character versus supernatural. This conflict involves a struggle between a character and supernatural elements, such as ghosts, gods, or mythical creatures. It explores themes of fear, destiny, and the unknown. In Dracula by Bram Stoker, the conflict between the characters and the vampire Count Dracula represents a struggle against supernatural forces. Conflict and plot development. Driving the plot. Conflict is essential for driving the plot and creating narrative momentum. It introduces obstacles and challenges that the protagonist must face, leading to changes in the story's direction and progression. Conflicts push characters to take actions, make decisions, and confront their goals. Creating tension. Conflicts create tension by presenting obstacles and uncertainties. This tension keeps readers engaged and invested in the outcome of the story. The resolution of conflicts often involves high stakes and significant consequences, heightening the drama. Facilitating character growth. Conflicts are crucial for character development. They force characters to confront their flaws, make difficult choices, and grow in response to challenges. The resolution of conflicts reveals how characters have evolved and what they have learned. Examples of conflict in literature. 1984 by George Orwell. The primary conflict in 1984 is between Winston Smith and the totalitarian regime of Big Brother. This conflict represents the struggle between individual freedom and oppressive control, highlighting themes of surveillance, power, and resistance. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. Jane Eyre faces multiple conflicts, including internal struggles with her self-worth and moral convictions, as well as external conflicts with societal expectations and her romantic relationship with Mr. Rochester. These conflicts drive her personal growth and the narrative's development. The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. The conflict between Ralph and Jack represents a struggle for power and control among the boys stranded on the island. This conflict reflects broader themes of civilization versus savagery and the fragility of social order. Analyzing conflict. Identifying conflicts. Identify the primary conflicts in the story, both internal and external. Consider how these conflicts impact the characters and the plot. Understanding the nature of the conflict helps in analyzing its significance and resolution. Examining conflict resolution. Analyze how conflicts are resolved in the narrative. Consider the outcomes for the characters and the implications for the story's themes. The resolution of conflicts often reflects the character's growth and the narrative's message. Exploring themes through conflict. Examine how conflicts explore and illuminate the story's themes. Conflicts often reveal underlying issues, values, and messages within the narrative. Understanding the thematic connections helps in gaining a deeper insight into the story. Conclusion. Conflict is a fundamental element of storytelling that drives the plot, creates tension, and facilitates character development. By understanding and analyzing conflicts, readers can appreciate how obstacles and struggles contribute to the narrative's structure and meaning. Conflicts, whether internal or external, play a crucial role in engaging readers and enhancing the emotional and thematic depth of the story. Theme. Defining theme. Theme is the central idea, concept, or underlying message that an author explores through a narrative. It represents the broader significance of the story, often reflecting universal truths or observations about human nature, society, or life. Themes provide depth to the narrative and offer readers insights beyond the surface level of the plot. Understanding themes enhances the appreciation of a story's meaning and purpose. Identifying themes. Explicit themes. Explicit themes are directly stated or clearly expressed by the author within the narrative. These themes are often presented through dialogue, narration, or specific statements. For example, in To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, the theme of racial injustice is explicitly addressed through the trial of Tom Robinson and Atticus Finch's defense. Implicit themes. Implicit themes are implied rather than directly stated. They are revealed through the characters' actions, the plot's progression, and the overall narrative. Readers must infer these themes based on the context and symbolism within the story. For instance, in The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, the theme of the American dream is implicit, emerging through Gatsby's pursuit of wealth and status. Common themes in literature. Love. Love is a recurring theme in literature, exploring various forms such as romantic love, familial love, and platonic love. Stories about love often examine its complexities, challenges, and impact on individuals. For example, Romeo and Juliet by William Shakespeare explores the passionate, tragic love between two young lovers. Good versus evil. The theme of good versus evil examines the struggle between moral righteousness and immoral actions. It often highlights the battle between virtuous characters and antagonists. For instance, in The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien, the conflict between the forces of good, led by the Fellowship, and the evil Sauron is a central theme. Identity. The theme of identity explores the self, personal growth, and the quest for self-understanding. Stories about identity often address issues of self-discovery, cultural heritage, and individuality. In The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Holden Caulfield's journey reflects his struggle to find his identity and place in the world. Power and corruption. This theme examines how power influences individuals and societies, often leading to corruption and moral decline. It explores the dynamics of authority and its impact on ethics and behavior. In Animal Farm by George Orwell, the theme of power and corruption is evident in the rise and fall of the pig's leadership. Freedom and confinement. The theme of freedom versus confinement explores the tension between liberation and restriction. It can address physical, emotional, or societal constraints and the desire for autonomy. In One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest by Ken Kesey, the theme of freedom versus confinement is portrayed through the protagonist's struggle against the oppressive hospital system. Exploring themes through literary elements. Characterization. Characters often embody and express themes through their actions, decisions, and growth. Analyzing characters' experiences and relationships can reveal thematic concerns. For example, in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Elizabeth Bennet's character development explores themes of social class and personal integrity. Plot. The plot often reflects and reinforces the story's themes. Key events and conflicts can illuminate thematic elements and highlight the narrative's broader message. For example, in Lord of the Flies by William Golding, the plot's progression underscores the theme of civilization versus savagery. Setting. The setting can contribute to thematic development by establishing the context and atmosphere of the narrative. Settings often reflect or enhance themes, such as the use of dystopian environments to explore themes of totalitarianism. In 1984 by George Orwell, the oppressive setting of Oceania reinforces the theme of totalitarian control. Symbolism. Symbols within the narrative can represent thematic elements, adding depth and nuance to the exploration of themes. Analyzing symbols helps to uncover underlying messages and thematic concerns. For instance, in The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne, the scarlet letter itself symbolizes themes of sin, guilt, and societal judgment. Analyzing themes. Identifying central themes. Identify the central themes of the narrative by examining the characters, plot, and other literary elements. Consider what messages or ideas the author is conveying through the story. Interpreting thematic significance. Analyze the significance of themes in relation to the story's broader context. Consider how themes reflect societal issues, personal experiences, or philosophical questions. Connecting themes to the author's purpose. Explore how themes relate to the author's purpose and intention. Consider how the themes contribute to the overall message or commentary that the author aims to communicate. Examples of themes in literature. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Themes of the American dream, class, and disillusionment are central to the story. Gatsby's pursuit of wealth and status reflects the theme of the elusive nature of the American dream. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Themes of ambition, responsibility, and the consequences of playing God are explored through Victor Frankenstein's creation of the monster and the resulting tragedy. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. The theme of alienation and the search for authenticity are central to Holden Caulfield's experiences and reflections throughout the novel. Conclusion. Theme is a vital aspect of literature that provides insight into the deeper meaning of a narrative. By understanding and analyzing themes, readers can gain a richer appreciation of the story's messages and the author's intentions. Themes connect the narrative to broader human experiences and societal issues, offering readers a more profound engagement with the text. Symbolism. Defining symbolism. Symbolism is a literary device where symbols, objects, actions, or imagery represent abstract ideas or concepts beyond their literal meaning. By using symbolism, authors imbue their narratives with deeper layers of meaning, allowing readers to uncover and interpret thematic elements and messages. Symbolism enriches the text by creating connections between concrete elements and abstract ideas, enhancing the reader's engagement with the story. Types of symbols. Concrete symbols. Concrete symbols are tangible objects or elements within the narrative that stand for abstract ideas or concepts. For example, in The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, the green light at the end of Daisy's dock symbolizes Gatsby's unattainable dreams and the broader theme of the American dream. Abstract symbols. Abstract symbols are more conceptual and less tangible. They often represent intangible qualities, such as emotions, ideas, or states of being. For instance, in George Orwell's 1984, the omnipresent surveillance by Big Brother symbolizes the theme of oppressive government control and loss of personal freedom. Functions of symbolism. Enhancing themes. Symbolism enhances the thematic depth of a narrative by providing additional layers of meaning. Symbols can reflect and reinforce the central themes of the story. For example, in Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter itself symbolizes themes of sin, guilt, and social judgment. Developing characters. Symbols can also be used to develop and reveal character traits, motivations, and inner conflicts. Characters' interactions with symbols can provide insights into their personalities and struggles. In Moby Dick by Herman Melville, Captain Ahab's obsession with the white whale symbolizes his internal struggle with revenge and his broader existential crisis. Creating atmosphere. Symbolism can help create and enhance the atmosphere or mood of a narrative. By associating certain symbols with specific settings or events, authors can evoke particular emotional responses in readers. For example, in Edgar Allan Poe's The Raven symbolizes grief and loss, contributing to the poem's melancholic atmosphere. Conveying subtext. Symbols often convey subtext, implied or hidden meanings that go beyond the literal narrative. Through symbolism, authors can subtly communicate ideas and messages that might not be directly stated. In Lord of the Flies by William Golding, the conch shell symbolizes civilization and order, while its destruction represents the breakdown of social structures. Analyzing symbols. Identifying symbols. To analyze symbolism, begin by identifying symbols within the narrative. Look for recurring objects, images, or actions that seem to carry additional meaning. Pay attention to how these symbols are used and their significance in relation to the story's themes and characters. Interpreting symbolic meaning. Consider the possible interpretations of symbols and how they relate to the broader context of the narrative. Explore how symbols contribute to the thematic development and character dynamics. For example, in The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, the yellow wallpaper itself symbolizes the protagonist's mental deterioration and the constraints imposed on women. Connecting symbols to themes. Analyze how symbols connect to and reinforce the story's themes. Reflect on how the symbolic elements contribute to the overall message or commentary of the narrative. For example, in The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Holden Caulfield's red hunting hat symbolizes his desire for protection and his sense of alienation. Examples of symbolism in literature. Animal Farm by George Orwell. The farm animals and their actions symbolize various political ideologies and historical events. The pigs, for example, symbolize the corrupting influence of power, reflecting the broader theme of political corruption and totalitarianism. The Lord of the Flies by William Golding. Various symbols in the novel, such as the conch shell and Piggy's glasses, represent different aspects of civilization, knowledge, and order. These symbols highlight the novel's exploration of human nature and societal breakdown. The Scarlet Letter by Nathaniel Hawthorne. The Scarlet Letter, as well as other symbols such as the rosebush and the scaffold, represent themes of sin, redemption, and social judgment. These symbols contribute to the novel's exploration of moral and societal issues. Challenges of symbolism. Interpreting multiple meanings. Symbols often have multiple meanings and can be interpreted in various ways. Readers may need to consider different perspectives and contexts to fully understand the symbolism. This requires careful analysis and a willingness to explore different interpretations, cultural and contextual variations. The meaning of symbols can vary depending on cultural and historical contexts. Understanding the cultural background and context in which the narrative is set can provide valuable insights into the symbolism. Authorial intent versus reader interpretation. There can be a tension between the author's intended symbolism and readers' interpretations. While authorial intent provides a basis for understanding symbols, readers may bring their own perspectives and experiences to their interpretations. Conclusion. Symbolism is a powerful literary device that adds depth and complexity to a narrative. By using symbols, authors convey abstract ideas, enhance thematic development, and create a richer reading experience. Analyzing symbols helps readers uncover hidden meanings and appreciate the intricacies of the story. Understanding symbolism allows readers to engage more deeply with the text and grasp the broader significance of the narrative. Point of view. Defining point of view. Point of view, POV, refers to the perspective from which a story is narrated. It determines the narrator's position in relation to the story and influences how information is presented to the reader. The choice of POV affects the reader's understanding of the characters, events, and themes. Understanding POV is essential for analyzing how a narrative shapes the reader's perception and engagement with the story. Types of point of view. First-person POV. In first-person POV, the narrator is a character within the story, using I or we to describe events and experiences. This perspective provides intimate access to the narrator's thoughts, feelings, and personal experiences, creating a direct connection between the reader and the narrator. However, it is limited to the narrator's knowledge and experiences. For example, in The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Holden Caulfield narrates the story from his own perspective, providing insight into his inner world and subjective experiences. Second-person POV. Second-person POV addresses the reader directly using you, making the reader a character in the story. This perspective is less common in traditional fiction, but is used in certain experimental or interactive texts. It creates a unique and immersive experience, but can be challenging to sustain over long narratives. An example of second-person POV is in Choose Your Own Adventure books, where readers make decisions for the protagonist. Third-person limited POV. In third-person limited POV, the narrator is outside the story but focuses on the thoughts, feelings, and experiences of one character. The narrator uses he, she, or they, and provides insight into the chosen character's internal world while remaining detached from other characters' inner lives. For instance, in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone by J.K. Rowling, the narration closely follows Harry Potter, providing readers with his perspective while maintaining a third-person stance. Third-person omniscient POV. Third-person omniscient POV features a narrator with complete knowledge of all characters, events, and settings. This narrator can provide insight into multiple characters' thoughts and experiences, as well as reveal information that is not accessible to the characters themselves. This perspective allows for a comprehensive view of the story's world and its dynamics. For example, in Middlemarch by George Eliot, the omniscient narrator provides detailed insights into various characters' lives and motivations. Third-person objective POV. In third-person objective POV, the narrator reports only what can be observed externally, without access to characters' internal thoughts or feelings. This perspective presents the story in a detached manner, focusing solely on actions and dialogue. The lack of internal perspective creates a sense of neutrality and objectivity. For instance, in Ernest Hemingway's Hills Like White Elephants, the third-person objective POV captures the conversation and actions of the characters without delving into their inner thoughts. Impact of point of view. Character insight. The chosen POV affects the level of insight readers gain into characters' thoughts, emotions, and motivations. First-person and third-person limited POVs offer deeper access to a character's internal world, while third-person objective POVs provide a more external view. Narrative bias. POV can introduce bias or subjective interpretation into the narrative. A first-person narrator or third-person limited perspective may present events and characters from a particular viewpoint, shaping how readers perceive the story. This bias influences the reader's understanding of truth and reliability within the narrative. Reader engagement. Different POVs impact reader engagement and connection with the story. First-person and second-person POVs can create a more immediate and immersive experience, while third-person omniscient and objective POVs offer broader perspectives and insights. Information disclosure. The choice of POV affects the amount and type of information disclosed to the reader. For example, third-person omniscient POV allows for comprehensive information about all characters and events, while first-person POV restricts information to the narrator's experiences and observations. Analyzing point of view. Identifying the POV. Determine the point of view used in the narrative by examining the narrator's position and perspective. Consider how the POV influences the presentation of characters, events, and themes. Evaluating the impact. Analyze how the chosen POV affects the reader's understanding of the story. Consider how it shapes character development, plot progression, and thematic exploration. Reflect on the effectiveness of the POV in conveying the narrative's message. Exploring alternative perspectives. Consider how the story might change if told from a different POV. Reflect on how alternative perspectives could alter character insights, plot development, and thematic emphasis. This exercise can deepen the understanding of the chosen POV's role and impact. Examples of point of view in literature. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Narrated by Nick Carraway in the first person, the novel provides a subjective view of the characters and events, influencing the reader's perception of Gatsby and the story's themes. 1984 by George Orwell. The third-person limited POV focuses on Winston Smith, offering insight into his thoughts and experiences while maintaining a degree of narrative distance from other characters. The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. Narrated in third-person limited, the story provides an intimate view of Gregor Samsa's internal experiences and struggles, reflecting the themes of isolation and alienation. Conclusion. Point of view is a crucial element of storytelling that shapes the reader's engagement with the narrative. By understanding and analyzing different POVs, readers can gain insights into how narratives are constructed and how perspectives influence character development, plot progression, and thematic exploration. The choice of POV determines how information is presented and perceived, affecting the overall impact and meaning of the story. Tone. Defining tone. Tone refers to the author's attitude or approach toward the subject matter and the audience, conveyed through the narrative style, language, and mood. It sets the emotional atmosphere of the story and influences how readers perceive the characters, events, and themes. Tone can range from serious and somber to humorous and lighthearted, shaping the reader's emotional response and interpretation of the text. Elements contributing to tone. Diction. Diction, or word choice, significantly impacts the tone of a narrative. The author's selection of words, whether formal, informal, poetic, or colloquial, can convey various emotions and attitudes. For example, in Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, the formal and witty diction reflects the novel's tone of social satire and irony. Syntax. Syntax, or sentence structure, affects tone by influencing the rhythm and flow of the narrative. Complex or elaborate sentences may create a serious or formal tone, while short and simple sentences might contribute to a more casual or urgent tone. In The Road by Cormac McCarthy, the sparse and fragmented syntax contributes to the novel's bleak and desolate tone. Imagery. Imagery involves descriptive language that appeals to the senses and evokes particular moods. The use of vivid or evocative imagery can enhance the tone by creating specific atmospheres and emotional effects. For instance, in The Raven by Edgar Allan Poe, the dark and eerie imagery contributes to the poem's mournful and ominous tone. Dialogue. Dialogue between characters can reveal tone through their interactions, speech patterns, and the language they use. The way characters speak to each other can convey tension, humor, or affection, impacting the overall tone of the narrative. In The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Holden Caulfield's conversational and often sarcastic dialogue reflects the novel's tone of adolescent angst and rebellion. Narrative voice. The narrative voice, including the narrator's perspective and attitude, plays a crucial role in establishing tone. Whether the narrator is omniscient, limited, or unreliable affects how tone is conveyed and perceived. In The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Nick Carraway's reflective and sometimes disillusioned narrative voice contributes to the novel's tone of melancholy and critique. Types of tone. Serious. A serious tone conveys gravity and earnestness, often exploring profound or weighty themes. It may reflect the importance of the subject matter and evoke thoughtful consideration from the reader. For example, in The Diary of Anne Frank, the serious tone underscores the gravity of the Holocaust and the resilience of the human spirit. Humorous. A humorous tone uses wit, satire, and playful language to entertain and amuse the reader. It can provide relief from serious themes or offer a lighthearted perspective on events and characters. In Catch 22 by Joseph Heller, the humorous tone highlights the absurdity and irrationality of war through satirical narrative. Ironic. An ironic tone involves a contrast between appearance and reality, often highlighting contradictions and discrepancies. It may employ sarcasm, understatement, or exaggeration to reveal deeper truths. For example, in A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift, the ironic tone critiques social and economic issues through a satirical suggestion. Melancholic. A melancholic tone conveys sadness, reflection, or nostalgia, creating an emotional atmosphere of sorrow or longing. It may reflect themes of loss or existential contemplation. In The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, the melancholic tone captures the protagonist's struggles with mental illness and self-identity. Optimistic. An optimistic tone reflects a positive outlook and hopefulness, often emphasizing resilience and potential for improvement. It can uplift the reader and offer encouragement. In End of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery, the optimistic tone conveys Anne Shirley's hopeful and imaginative view of life. Analyzing tone. Identifying the tone. To analyze tone, start by identifying the overall mood and emotional quality of the narrative. Consider the author's use of language, imagery, and style to determine how tone is established and conveyed. Examining tone's impact. Analyze how tone affects the reader's perception of characters, events, and themes. Reflect on how tone influences the narrative's emotional impact and the reader's engagement with the story. Exploring tone shifts. Consider any shifts in tone throughout the narrative and how these changes affect the story. Reflect on why the author may have altered the tone and what it reveals about the narrative's development and themes. Connecting tone to themes. Explore how tone relates to the story's themes and underlying messages. Analyze how the tone enhances or contrasts with the thematic elements, contributing to the narrative's overall meaning. Examples of tone in literature. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. The tone of the novel is a mix of serious and compassionate, reflecting the gravity of racial injustice and the innocence of childhood. Scout's perspective and the narrative's reflective style contribute to the tone. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. The tone is humorous and satirical, using wit and absurdity to explore themes of life and the universe. Adams's playful language and ironic situations create a tone of comedic irreverence. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. The tone varies between dark and passionate, reflecting the tumultuous relationships and gothic atmosphere of the novel. The intense and brooding tone underscores the emotional and psychological complexity of the characters. Conclusion. Tone is a fundamental element of narrative that shapes the reader's emotional experience and interpretation of the story. By understanding and analyzing tone, readers can gain insight into the author's attitude, the narrative's emotional atmosphere, and the overall impact of the text. Tone influences how characters, events, and themes are perceived, adding depth and richness to the literary experience. Mood. Defining mood. Mood refers to the emotional atmosphere or feeling that a narrative evokes in the reader. It is created through the author's use of setting, diction, imagery, and tone, and it influences how readers emotionally connect with the story. Unlike tone, which reflects the author's attitude toward the subject, mood pertains to the reader's emotional response to the narrative. Understanding mood is crucial for interpreting how a story affects its audience and contributes to the overall thematic experience. Elements contributing to mood. Setting. The setting, including the time and place where the story occurs, plays a significant role in establishing mood. Descriptions of the environment, weather, and physical surroundings can create various emotional atmospheres. For example, in Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, the dark, desolate landscapes contribute to the novel's ominous and eerie mood. Diction. Diction, or word choice, affects mood by shaping the emotional tone and atmosphere of the narrative. The author's choice of words, whether they are vivid, evocative, or neutral, can create feelings of joy, despair, tension, or tranquility. In The Road by Cormac McCarthy, the sparse and stark diction enhances the novel's somber and bleak mood. Imagery. Imagery involves descriptive language that appeals to the senses and creates vivid mental pictures. The use of specific imagery can evoke particular moods by conjuring sensory experiences and emotional responses. For instance, in The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, the disturbing imagery of the wallpaper contributes to a mood of confinement and madness. Tone. Tone and mood are closely related, but while tone reflects the author's attitude, mood is the emotional response elicited in the reader. The author's tone can influence the mood by shaping how readers perceive the setting, characters, and events. For example, a dark and ironic tone in a story can create a mood of unease or cynicism. Plot events. Key events and conflicts in the plot can also shape the mood. Dramatic or suspenseful events can generate feelings of tension and anxiety, while moments of resolution or calm can evoke relief or contentment. In Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, the suspenseful and tumultuous events contribute to a mood of tension and mystery. Types of mood. Gloomy. A gloomy mood conveys darkness, sadness, or melancholy. It often reflects themes of despair, loss, or hopelessness. For example, in The Outsiders by S.E. Hinton, the mood of the novel is often gloomy, reflecting the struggles and conflicts faced by the characters. Eerie. An eerie mood evokes feelings of unease or supernatural dread. It is commonly used in horror or Gothic literature to create a sense of mystery or fear. In The Turn of the Screw by Henry James, the eerie mood is established through unsettling descriptions and a suspenseful atmosphere. Joyful. A joyful mood creates a sense of happiness, optimism, and celebration. It is often achieved through positive descriptions, uplifting events, and light-hearted interactions. In Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, the joyful mood is reflected in the romantic and social triumphs of the characters. Suspenseful. A suspenseful mood generates excitement, tension, or anticipation about future events. It keeps readers on edge, eager to see what happens next. In Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, the suspenseful mood is created through unpredictable plot twists and psychological intrigue. Reflective. A reflective mood encourages contemplation and introspection. It often involves characters or events that prompt deep thought and self-examination. In To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, the reflective mood allows readers to ponder themes of morality, justice, and human nature. Analyzing mood. Identifying the mood. Begin by identifying the overall emotional atmosphere of the narrative. Consider the setting, imagery, diction, and plot events to determine how the mood is created and sustained throughout the story. Examining mood's impact. Analyze how the mood affects the reader's emotional response and engagement with the narrative. Reflect on how the mood influences the reader's perception of characters, events, and themes. Exploring mood shifts. Consider any shifts in mood throughout the narrative and how these changes affect the story's emotional impact. Reflect on the reasons for mood changes and their significance in relation to the plot and themes. Connecting mood to themes. Explore how mood relates to the story's themes and underlying messages. Analyze how the mood enhances or contrasts with the thematic elements, contributing to the narrative's overall meaning. Examples of mood in literature. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The mood of the novel varies from the opulent and celebratory atmosphere of Gatsby's parties to the somber and reflective tone of the novel's conclusion, reflecting the themes of disillusionment and the American dream. The Shining by Stephen King. The mood is consistently eerie and unsettling, created through the isolated setting of the Overlook Hotel and the escalating psychological horror experienced by the characters. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. The mood ranges from joyful and heartwarming to somber and reflective, reflecting the characters' personal growth and the challenges they face throughout the story. Conclusion. Mood is an essential element of narrative that shapes the reader's emotional experience and connection to the story. By understanding and analyzing mood, readers can gain insight into how a narrative's atmosphere influences its emotional impact and thematic exploration. Mood contributes to the overall experience of the text, creating a richer and more immersive literary experience. Style. Defining style. Style refers to the distinctive way an author expresses their thoughts and ideas through language, including their use of syntax, diction, tone, and literary devices. It encompasses the author's unique voice and technique, shaping how the narrative is presented and perceived. Understanding style is crucial for analyzing how an author's choices contribute to the overall impact of the text and influence the reader's experience. Elements contributing to style. Diction. Diction, or word choice, significantly influences an author's style. The selection of words, whether formal, informal, colloquial, or archaic, affects the tone, mood, and readability of the text. For instance, in The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Holden Caulfield's informal and conversational diction reflects his rebellious and youthful personality. Syntax. Syntax refers to the arrangement of words and sentences. An author's syntax can vary from complex and elaborate to simple and straightforward, affecting the rhythm and flow of the narrative. For example, in Moby Dick by Herman Melville, the complex and lengthy sentences contribute to the novel's grand and epic style. Figurative language. Figurative language, including metaphors, similes, and personification, enriches an author's style by adding layers of meaning and creating vivid imagery. In The Road by Cormac McCarthy, the sparse yet evocative figurative language enhances the novel's bleak and haunting style. Imagery. Imagery involves descriptive language that appeals to the senses and creates vivid mental pictures. The use of imagery can establish a distinctive style by evoking particular atmospheres and emotional responses. For example, in The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, the opulent and colorful imagery contributes to the novel's stylish and glamorous portrayal of the Jazz Age. Tone. Tone reflects the author's attitude toward the subject matter and influences their style. The way tone is conveyed, whether serious, humorous, ironic, or detached, affects the overall style of the narrative. In Pride and Prejudice, by Jane Austen, the witty and ironic tone reflects Austen's elegant and satirical style. Types of style. Formal. A formal style is characterized by a sophisticated and structured use of language. It often includes complex sentence structures, precise word choices, and adherence to grammatical conventions. This style is commonly used in academic, legal, and professional writing. For example, in 1984, by George Orwell, the formal style underscores the dystopian and oppressive nature of the regime. Informal. An informal style is more conversational and relaxed, often incorporating colloquial language, contractions, and a personal tone. It is frequently used in dialogue and first-person narratives to create a sense of intimacy and immediacy. For example, in To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Scout's informal and conversational style reflects her youthful perspective and personal voice. Descriptive. A descriptive style focuses on creating vivid and detailed imagery through elaborate descriptions. It aims to immerse readers in the sensory experiences of the narrative. For instance, in The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, the descriptive style enhances the novel's emotional depth and poignancy through rich and evocative imagery. Minimalist. A minimalist style emphasizes brevity and simplicity, often using short sentences, sparse descriptions, and straightforward language. It aims to create impact through understatement and subtlety. For example, in Hills Like White Elephants by Ernest Hemingway, the minimalist style contributes to the story's tension and ambiguity through understated dialogue and sparse detail. Experimental. An experimental style breaks traditional narrative conventions, using unconventional structures, formats, or language. It often challenges readers' expectations and explores new ways of storytelling. For instance, in House of Leaves by Mark Z. Danielewski, the experimental style includes unconventional page layouts and typographical elements, creating a unique and immersive reading experience. Analyzing style. Identifying the style. Begin by identifying the distinctive features of the author's style, including diction, syntax, figurative language, and imagery. Consider how these elements contribute to the overall presentation of the narrative. Examining style's impact. Analyze how the author's style affects the reader's engagement and interpretation of the text. Reflect on how style influences the tone, mood, and thematic elements of the narrative. Exploring style's consistency. Consider whether the author's style remains consistent throughout the narrative or if it shifts in different sections. Reflect on the reasons for any changes in style and their impact on the story. Connecting style to themes. Explore how the author's style relates to the story's themes and underlying messages. Analyze how the stylistic choices enhance or emphasize thematic elements, contributing to the narrative's overall meaning. Examples of style in literature. Catch 22 by Joseph Heller. The novel's distinctive style is characterized by its satirical and absurd tone, fragmented narrative structure, and repetitive, ironic dialogue, reflecting the chaotic and nonsensical nature of war. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. The confessional and introspective style of the novel captures the protagonist's psychological struggles, using evocative and personal language to convey the depth of her emotional turmoil. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. The novel's magical realist style blends fantastical elements with historical reality, using rich and poetic language to create a unique and immersive narrative experience. Conclusion. Style is a fundamental aspect of narrative that shapes the reader's experience and interpretation of the text. By understanding and analyzing style, readers can gain insight into how an author's language choices, narrative techniques, and stylistic elements contribute to the overall impact and meaning of the story. Style influences the tone, mood, and thematic exploration, creating a distinctive and engaging literary experience. Voice. Defining voice. Voice in literature refers to the unique personality and perspective that an author or narrator brings to a narrative. It encompasses the tone, style, and diction used to convey the story, and it reflects the distinctiveness of the author's or narrator's character. Voice is integral to how readers experience and interpret a text, providing insight into the narrator's personality, beliefs, and emotional state. It can be influenced by the narrator's background, attitudes, and relationship to the story. Elements contributing to voice. Narrative perspective. The narrative perspective, whether first person, second person, or third person, greatly affects the voice of the text. A first-person narrator provides a direct, personal account, while a third-person narrator offers an external viewpoint. For example, in The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger, Holden Caulfield's first-person voice is characterized by his distinctive and subjective perspective. Diction. Diction, or word choice, contributes to the voice by shaping the language and tone of the narrative. The choice of formal, informal, or colloquial language can reflect the narrator's background and attitude. In The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain, Huck's informal and regional diction provides authenticity to his voice and reflects his social context. Tone. The tone of the narrative voice, whether it is sarcastic, earnest, reflective, or humorous, affects how the voice is perceived. Tone reflects the narrator's attitude toward the subject matter and influences the reader's emotional response. In The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath, the introspective and often melancholic tone of the narrator enhances the novel's reflective voice. Style. Style, including syntax and figurative language, contributes to the voice by shaping how the narrator expresses ideas and emotions. The use of descriptive, minimalist, or experimental styles can affect the distinctiveness of the voice. For example, in Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut, the unconventional and fragmented style reflects the protagonist's disoriented and detached voice. Characterization. In works with a strong narrative voice, the narrator's personality and experiences are often deeply interwoven with the story. Characterization through voice can reveal insights into the narrator's motivations, conflicts, and worldview. In To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Scout Finch's childlike and perceptive voice provides a nuanced view of the social issues in her community. Types of voice. Authorial voice. Authorial voice refers to the distinctive style and perspective of the author themselves, as expressed through their writing. It reflects the author's unique approach to storytelling and thematic exploration. For example, in The Road by Cormac McCarthy, the authorial voice is marked by sparse, poetic language and a somber tone. Narrative voice. Narrative voice pertains to the persona or character that tells the story. It can be influenced by the narrative perspective, tone, and style. For instance, in The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, Nick Carraway's narrative voice is reflective and subjective, shaping the reader's understanding of Gatsby and the Jazz Age. Character voice. Character voice refers to the distinct manner of speaking or thinking that a character exhibits. It provides insight into the character's personality and motivations. For example, in Harry Potter by J.K. Rowling, the voice of Harry Potter is shaped by his experiences and growth, influencing how readers connect with his journey. Authorial persona. The authorial persona is the voice or persona that the author adopts when engaging with the reader, distinct from their personal identity. It can be formal, informal, or conversational, depending on the text and its purpose. For example, in On Writing by Stephen King, King's authorial persona is candid and practical, offering insights into his writing process. Stream of consciousness. The stream of consciousness voice provides a direct portrayal of a character's inner thoughts and feelings, often in a disjointed or nonlinear manner. It reflects the character's mental state and perceptions. In Ulysses by James Joyce, the stream of consciousness technique creates a complex and introspective voice that reveals the inner workings of the character's minds. Analyzing voice. Identifying the voice. Begin by identifying the unique characteristics of the narrative or character voice, including diction, tone, and style. Consider how these elements contribute to the overall presentation of the story. Examining voice's impact. Analyze how the voice influences the reader's perception of characters, events, and themes. Reflect on how the voice affects the reader's engagement and emotional response to the narrative. Exploring voice consistency. Consider whether the voice remains consistent throughout the narrative or if it shifts. Reflect on the reasons for any changes in voice and their impact on the story. Connecting voice to themes. Explore how the voice relates to the story's themes and underlying messages. Analyze how the voice enhances or contrasts with thematic elements, contributing to the narrative's overall meaning. Examples of voice in literature. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. Holden Caulfield's distinct first-person voice is characterized by its informal language, sarcasm, and introspection, providing a deep and personal view of his experiences and emotions. The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. The introspective and melancholic voice of Esther Greenwood reflects her struggles with mental illness and her complex inner life, creating a poignant and reflective narrative. The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn by Mark Twain. Huck Finn's voice is shaped by his regional dialect, informal diction, and honest perspective, providing authenticity and insight into his character and worldview. Conclusion. Voice is a crucial element of narrative that shapes the reader's experience and interpretation of the text. By understanding and analyzing voice, readers can gain insight into the author's or narrator's personality, perspective, and emotional state. Voice influences how characters, events, and themes are presented, creating a distinctive and engaging literary experience. Irony. Defining irony. Irony is a literary device where the intended meaning or outcome is opposite to what is expected or expressed. It involves a discrepancy between appearance and reality, often highlighting a contrast between what is said and what is meant, or between expectations and actual events. Irony can create humor, suspense, or critical insights, making it a powerful tool in literature for adding depth and complexity to a narrative. Types of irony. Verbal irony. Verbal irony occurs when a speaker says something but means the opposite. This type of irony often involves sarcasm or exaggeration. For example, if a character looks out at a stormy night and says, "What a beautiful day," the discrepancy between their words and the actual weather creates verbal irony. Situational irony. Situational irony involves a situation where the outcome is drastically different from what was expected or intended. This type of irony highlights a contrast between expectations and reality. For instance, in Oedipus Rex by Sophocles, Oedipus seeks to rid Thebes of a plague, only to discover that he himself is the cause, creating a profound sense of situational irony. Dramatic irony. Dramatic irony occurs when the audience or readers know something that the characters do not. This type of irony creates tension and engagement as readers anticipate how the characters will react once they discover the truth. For example, in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the audience knows that Juliet is not actually dead, but Romeo does not, leading to tragic consequences. Cosmic irony. Cosmic irony, or irony of fate, involves the notion that the universe or fate is indifferent or hostile to human aspirations. It emphasizes the contrast between human desires and the indifferent forces of nature or fate. For example, in Thomas Hardy's Tess of the D'Urberville, Tessa's attempts to improve her life are thwarted by relentless and indifferent forces beyond her control, illustrating cosmic irony. Socratic irony. Socratic irony involves pretending ignorance to expose the contradictions in another person's argument. Named after Socrates, this type of irony is used to encourage others to examine their beliefs and assumptions. For example, in The Apology by Plato, Socrates feigns ignorance to lead others to reveal their own lack of understanding. Examples of irony in literature. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. The novel contains several examples of irony, including verbal irony in Elizabeth Bennet's witty observations about societal norms and character flaws. Situational irony is evident in Mr. Darcy's initial disdain for Elizabeth, which contrasts with his eventual love for her. The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. The story features situational irony where the couple's sacrifices to buy gifts for each other result in the gifts being rendered useless. This irony underscores the theme of selfless love and the value of personal sacrifice. 1984 by George Orwell. Dramatic irony is prominent in the novel as readers are aware of the party's control and manipulation of truth, while the protagonist, Winston Smith, is initially unaware of the full extent of the party's deceit and surveillance. The Necklace by Guy de Maupassant. The story uses situational irony where the protagonist, Mathilde Loisel, spends years in poverty to replace a lost necklace, only to discover that the original necklace was a fake. This irony highlights themes of vanity, social class, and the arbitrary nature of fortune. Analyzing irony. Identifying irony. Begin by identifying instances of irony in the text, including verbal, situational, dramatic, and cosmic irony. Consider how these instances create contrast or highlight discrepancies between expectations and reality. Examining irony's impact. Analyze how irony affects the reader's understanding and emotional response to the narrative. Reflect on how irony enhances the thematic elements of the story and contributes to the overall meaning. Exploring irony's function. Consider the function of irony within the narrative. Analyze how irony contributes to character development, plot progression, and thematic exploration. Reflect on whether irony serves to create humor, build suspense, or offer critical insights. Connecting irony to themes. Explore how irony relates to the story's themes and underlying messages. Analyze how the use of irony enhances or contrasts with thematic elements, contributing to the narrative's overall meaning and impact. Examples of irony in literature. The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. The story features dramatic irony, as the reader knows that Montresor plans to murder Fortunato, while Fortunato remains oblivious to the danger until it is too late. A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift. Swift employs verbal irony in his satirical essay, suggesting that the impoverished Irish could sell their children as food to the wealthy. The irony highlights the author's critique of British policy and social neglect. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. The novel contains situational irony, such as the boys' descent into savagery despite their initial intentions to create a civilized society. This irony underscores the novel's exploration of human nature and the loss of innocence. Conclusion. Irony is a versatile and powerful literary device that adds complexity and depth to narratives. By understanding and analyzing irony, readers can gain insight into how authors use contrast and discrepancy to enhance themes, develop characters, and engage readers. Irony creates layers of meaning and can evoke a range of emotional responses, enriching the overall reading experience. Genre. Defining genre. Genre refers to the category or type of literature characterized by specific conventions, themes, and styles. It helps classify works based on their content, form, and purpose, providing a framework for understanding and analyzing texts. Genres serve as a guide for readers and writers, setting expectations for narrative structure, themes, and stylistic elements. They also reflect cultural and historical contexts, influencing how stories are told and received. Types of literary genres. Fiction. Fiction encompasses narratives created from the author's imagination, though they may be inspired by real events or experiences. It includes various subgenres, such as novel, a long, complex narrative with developed characters and intricate plots. Examples include Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen and To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Short story, a brief narrative focusing on a single incident or character. For instance, The Lottery by Shirley Jackson and A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor are well-known short stories. Novella, a shorter form than a novel but longer than a short story, often focusing on a single, contained narrative. Examples include The Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka and Animal Farm by George Orwell. Nonfiction. Nonfiction presents factual information, analysis, or commentary. It includes biography, a detailed account of someone's life, such as The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. Autobiography, a self-written account of the author's life, like the autobiography of Malcolm X. Essay, a short piece exploring a specific topic or idea, exemplified by works such as A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift or Notes of a Native Son by James Baldwin. Poetry. Poetry uses rhythmic and often metaphorical language to express emotions, ideas, or stories. It includes various forms. Sonnet, a 14-line poem with a specific rhyme scheme, such as those by William Shakespeare. Haiku, a Japanese form consisting of 3 lines with a syllabic pattern of 5-7-5, exemplified by Matsuo Basho. Epic, a long narrative poem detailing heroic deeds, like the Iliad by Homer and Beowulf. Drama. Drama involves works written for performance, focusing on dialogue and action. It includes tragedy, a genre that depicts the downfall of a protagonist due to a tragic flaw or fate, such as Othello by Shakespeare. Comedy, a genre that aims to entertain and amuse, often with humorous situations and characters, as seen in A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare. Tragicomedy, a blend of tragedy and comedy, offering both serious and humorous elements, like Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett. Genre fiction. Genre fiction refers to specific categories within fiction that follow particular conventions and tropes. Science fiction explores speculative and futuristic concepts, like Dune by Frank Herbert. Fantasy features magical or supernatural elements, as in The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. Mystery centers around solving a crime or puzzle, exemplified by Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes series. Romance focuses on romantic relationships, such as Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Analyzing genre. Identifying genre. Determine the genre of a work by examining its conventions, themes, and stylistic elements. Consider how the genre influences the narrative structure and content. Exploring genre conventions. Analyze how a work adheres to or subverts genre conventions. Consider whether it follows traditional tropes or introduces innovative elements. Examining genre's impact. Reflect on how the genre shapes the reader's expectations and experience. Analyze how genre conventions influence the portrayal of characters, themes, and plot. Connecting genre to themes. Explore how the genre contributes to the development of themes and messages in the narrative. Consider how genre-specific elements enhance or challenge thematic exploration. Examples of genre in literature. 1984 by George Orwell, science fiction. The novel uses speculative elements to explore themes of surveillance, totalitarianism, and individual freedom, characteristic of science fiction. The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, fantasy. Tolkien's work incorporates magical elements, mythical creatures, and an epic quest, defining features of the fantasy genre. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Arthur Conan Doyle, Mystery. The collection features detective stories with intricate puzzles and logical deductions, adhering to the conventions of the mystery genre. Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, Romance. The novel centers around romantic relationships and societal expectations, typical of the romance genre. Conclusion. Genre is a fundamental aspect of literature that shapes how narratives are structured and interpreted. By understanding and analyzing genre, readers can gain insight into the conventions and expectations that influence a text. Genre not only provides a framework for categorizing literature but also enhances the exploration of themes, character development, and narrative techniques. Recognizing genre-specific elements enriches the reading experience and deepens the appreciation of literary works.